Okay, let's roll. Let's talk about wireless. The theme of today's webinar is talking about where wireless supports what everyone is talking about in the transition in the channel, and this is a multi-year rollout, where CCaaS, UCaas, SD-WAN are what everyone is moving to in their multi-site and single-site engagements. And so wireless could be perceived as just a commodity connectivity solution that isn't that important to these applications. But in fact, it can be integral to many of these. And we're going to talk about specific examples of where we've supported SD-WAN deployments, CCaaS failover, UCaas failover, voice over IP failover, and also driving companies who can't get otherwise reliable wired connectivity, that they're actually running it on the wireless solution engineered by BroadSky. So we extend the reach of these deployments. We protect the infrastructure of these deployments. And we've been diving deep into the last 2 or 3 years. What we talk about a lot is interoperability with these major platforms. And so we've become deeply experienced in making sure that these strategic rollouts work when they're on the wireless. And then there's various reasons for why they'd be on the wireless. And so we're going to talk about those. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Glad you're here, and let's get rolling. So a little bit about BroadSky. We've been doing this since 2003. Wireless is all we do, and it's all we've ever done, and it's all we ever intend to do. This is a difficult niche to master. If you're working with a company that has this as an adjunct to their other business units, they're 2 to 4 years behind, and that's not going to change. So wireless is just not the same as other circuits. Because it travels through the air and because you have to pick that signal up on site, there's a lot of quality measures that go into making sure you have a quality wireless connection. And I could give you dozens of examples of companies who have tried to roll this out on their own by buying their own routers from Cradlepoint, let's just say, and then putting a Verizon SIM in every location, let's just say, and 40% of them don't work and nobody knows why. And then they quit and then they say wireless doesn't work, and then they go another way. It would work, but you have to engineer it properly. And so that's where we sit in the ecosystem. We don't run a network, we don't make routers. What we do is we make the network and the routers work properly. So we're out of Bend, Oregon. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list for the last 3 years. Objectively measured, that's a take or a sort of a conclusion from 2 drivers. 1, we're quite good at this. But 2, the networks have matured, the routers have matured, and so this works. This works all across the country. And you could have this working for your customer 2 weeks from now. And so more and more people are turning to us to make these deployments go, and it's reflected in the the financial numbers and the growth numbers. We fully intend to be on. We're already on for 2020 by any measure, and we fully intend to be there in 2021 through 2025. So that's one objective standard that says that this is the take rate on this is high. We happen to win the MSP 501 Channel Futures Award this year. That was a nice win for us. That was sort of recognized by our outside peers as being someone who's engineering solutions. And then we bring some other assets to the table that other companies in this space do not. One of them would be TechLink, which is our sister company, and it's our field services network. This is where you can get up and install an antenna if you want to get absolute maximum throughput speeds, although it's not required. Or if you want that router to be white glove installed. For instance, if you're trying to roll out 150 locations over a 3-week period and they just don't have the staffing for it, that's something that BroadSky can take care of for you. And then over on the application development side, TechSync Solutions is our app development, software development engine of the house. This is where we can start getting into customized build presentation or customized applications to get your data where it needs to be. And so that's what we're bringing to the table when we start talking about solutions. As in all things channel, multi-site deployments are always where the complexity and where the MRC is. We are deeply experienced in supporting multi-site locations. Okay. So here's our agenda. FailSAFE, wireless ensures business continuity. We're using this word FailSAFE because continuity is just a word, but safe really means something. And the overall agenda and the driver here obviously is if we're going to put everything in the cloud, we have to get to the cloud. And what if we can't get to the cloud? Well, that really isn't an option anymore. You have to get to the cloud. So let's talk about how we get there. Growth in the SD-WAN, UCaas, CCaaS, and where wireless fits to that, where the opportunity is, and then some different use cases that we've put out that might spark a thought process of where I could deploy this in my portfolio. And then we'll move to the Q&A. There's a chat box at the top if you want to type Q&A in, or you can unmute later and ask the question. We're looking for a robust Q&A section. We probably learn more in the Q&A than during the webinar, but let's try to have a good webinar, and then we'll move to the Q&A piece. So building a fail-safe network. More businesses are moving to the cloud, and we're staying cliches here, but the details underneath it are more businesses are moving to the cloud. So the network that can't fail is a component to that. We have all these benefits that we're going to get, all this ROI we're going to get, and all this business improvement we're going to get by moving everything to the cloud. But we have to be able to get to the cloud. And so that's where BroadSky fits in. So efficient use of the network to power applications, that would be the SD-WANs that you're putting out there. And so the SD-WAN deployments that are taking out MPLS, BroadSky sits inside of that solution. We're connected to about everything. VeloCloud, Ariaka, Ecessa, name one, we've probably connected to it. And so this is a great third path or second path. Third path when it has to be up no matter what, that's the wireless component. Second path to make that SD-WAN work properly in locations where you can really only get one fast circuit. And then diversity path, connectivity options, and seamless internet failover. So we said this a million times, but it's worth saying again, if you bring your two internet circuits into the building and they're inside the same conduit, the backhoe is going to hit both of them. So two wires in one connection is not failover. It's just not. And the reason for that is that your number one risk of losing your internet is a physical interruption, either cut or flood. And cuts and floods don't discriminate between wire one and wire two. They take them all. And then finally, visibility and control of the network. What we're speaking to here is our single pane of glass and the ability to peer into the network from BroadSky. The other thing worth mentioning is that if your terrestrial circuits drop, if you have a cut and you have a wireless circuit, you can tunnel back in and see what's happening to your circuits themselves. That's called out-of-band management. But the wireless component becomes that network management piece that you can actually get in and see it. And it could eliminate truck rolls and could eliminate or reduce it'll reduce the downtime, but it'll also get your main circuits up and running faster. So people in our business and people in your business are becoming experts on the whole network. How does it all interop together? How does it all talk to each other? So the drivers of this are SD-WAN, UCaas, CCaaS, and then 5G is right behind it. You're seeing ads for 5G 8 to 10 times a day. And this webinar is not about 5G, but 5G, based on a certain interpretation of 5G, is already here. And what they're meaning by that is the ability to maximize 10x speed performances out of the existing LTE networks. In 2004, you could get about 15 meg down on your phone. Now you can get to 150, 180 meg on a router that we provide if you engineer it properly. So that's a 10x speed gain over a 5-year period, which is about what we'd expect. The 1 gig circuits on 5G are coming. They're still about 2 years away, but we're living in that 100 to 180 meg world right now. So that could power an SD-WAN. It could be your fast second circuit. That would power your UCaas if we fail over to it and the entire operation is running their UCaas on that circuit. It's fast enough to support it. And then the contact center as a service, which is the next big wave of unified communications. That would be the next example of now we've got everything on the cloud. We can't do anything if we can't get to the cloud. And it's not just our talk time, it's our entire communications portfolio is running through an internet connection. And so we're using different examples to make the same point. You just have to have 2 circuits to the internet, and one of them should be wireless because you can't cut it. So these are the different solutions and the opportunity of how we attach to these SD-WAN, UCaas, CCaaS deployments. We're not something that comes in later as a nice to have. We sit right alongside of it as a have to have. And so, of course, it's a diverse path to the internet. Probably the 5th time I've said that. It's a zero-touch deployment. These are really easy to deploy once BroadSky's had their hands on them. We send them out pre-kitted. They already have the SIM card in it. They're already active. They either come with static IP or without static IP, because SD-WAN isn't using static IP as much anymore. But you literally take it out of the box, plug it in, screw in two antennas, and you're on the internet. Now, you do want to put the router in a place where it has a chance to breathe a little bit. Don't put it in the rack. Give it a chance just to get outside of that metal cage, because this is a wireless signal coming in, but it works out of the box. So the implications of that are twofold. One, we can get there first. So if you have 100 branches that need to put in an SD-WAN, but it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to get your new cable, DSL, Ethernet, fiber connectivity in, you can drop a wireless circuit in 2 weeks. That wireless circuit will be fast enough to deliver the benefits that are on paper that they're going to get. So instead of waiting 6 months from now for this thing to work right, it can work now. That's a key deployment. If you're opening a store, if someone forgot to order fiber, and this happens to us all the time, and we field these calls all the time, let's get a wireless circuit in there. Open the store on a wireless circuit, and then when the wired facility comes in, convert the wireless circuit to just a backup or second circuit. And that way the store opens on time and they get their SD-WAN on time. So you don't have to wait. Wireless allows you to get these out in the field faster, meaning your sales cycle shorten, meaning the MRC starts billing sooner, meaning the commission check starts showing up faster, meaning you can move on to the next project faster. So we shorten the deployment cycle and the time to revenue cycle by getting fast connectivity out in weeks or even days. Okay. So primary circuit on delayed wired, yep, we talked about that. Branch deployments, and then I'll just say this one more time. We delivers a second circuit at the same speed. So for some of these places that are in areas that don't have a great second circuit, and again, that second circuit's gonna be in the same trench. So either way, you might be able to get a fast cable connection, but fiber's too expensive and DSL's too slow. But I need 2 circuits to make my SD-WAN work right. What do? Drop a wireless circuit in. The wireless circuit will run 10x faster than the DSL, and it's approaching the cable speeds. And so now we have 2 fast circuits, and everybody gets to run on the same platform. So a couple of use cases we came up with. One is a traditional one that we all approach numerous times. We're using the word retail, but it could be multi-site branch. It could be, headquarters and 35 branch offices, et cetera. So we expanded the backbone connectivity. We allowed them to drop in a fast second circuit or third circuit so they could prioritize traffic. They could make their SD-WAN work by dropping this in. And if you think about the time to deployment on this, they could have installed this in 3 weeks, and then they get 1 bill. Now, in the alternative, that second circuit might generate 37 different bills from 37 different providers. Or you end up going to an aggregator, and now you're spending more money, but you want to get that 1 bill. And even if you did all that, your 2 circuits are still in the same conduit. It's not continuity if it's in the same trench. So the wireless comes in as the second circuit for rapid deployment. And then to my original point, I understand that there's aggregators out there who are offering wireless as an adjunct to what they do. They are not specialists. They are throwing it in as a, sure, that'll work too. They're treating it as a commodity, but it's not. And we're going to talk about why it's not a commodity in the next couple of slides. Then on the mobile side, if you look on the business case with the ambulance there, this is an application where we're putting fast internet on a mobile platform, if you will. Now, this particular platform is a healthcare group that's going out and offering healthcare services, not in a facility, but in the community or in the neighborhood or whatever it needs to be. But they still need internet to run their software as if they're in the hospital or in the clinic. So obviously now we need a mobile wireless solution. A mobile wireless solution in this case, not only does it have to be fast, but the router itself has to be the right router. If you put the router that you generally put in your office into a truck or an ambulance or a mobile health center, 3 months later, it's going to stop working for the reason that it's going to vibrate and the power that it's using is going to be too intense for it. We call it dirty power. So what you have to do is put a router that's made for this in the field, and you have to work with a partner that knows the difference. So the routers we would deploy on the right side on that mobile business case are going to be what's called ruggedized. They have heat sinks, they have shock absorbers, they have all metal casing, they have dust penetration protection, and they have much more robust circuitry that will handle the power surge that's coming, the different power types that are coming from the car itself, AKA dirty power. Once you do this, they'll run and run and run and run. So the routers we deploy are the same routers that they're putting in fire trucks, ambulances, and command cars and squad cars. They run, and that's what you need for a mobile application. So in this particular one, we put it in 75 vehicles. We put 2 different SIM cards in there, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But by putting 2 SIMs in, you do have the ability to access the best network depending on where they're going. And it allowed them to use their unified platform in a mobile environment. So this is how we make wireless work. If we accept the fact that we need to have a wireless circuit in there, if that point is relevant or if that resonates, then we need a quality circuit. So how does BroadSky sort of stand kind of head and shoulders above everyone else in engineering a quality circuit that will be there on that terrible day when the backhoe hits and nobody knows when it's going to get fixed? So let's talk about that a little bit. And the first thing we'll talk about is we've been doing this for 16 years. It's all we do, and we've put 12,000 plus circuits out there. So when you sit inside something long enough, you start to learn, hopefully. You know, we like to say we make mistakes, but we try not to make the same mistake twice. We've made a lot of the mistakes, but we're not making them anymore. And so just sort of intuitively and organically within BroadSky, once we start hearing what the application is, we start trending towards what is the right solution for this. How does the setup need to be done, et cetera, et cetera. And we start eliminating those problems on day one versus trying to solve the problem on day 181 and then finding you can't solve it with someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. We start engineering quality at the beginning. As an example, how do you make wireless work right when there's 3 different carriers? Which carrier do you pick? So right now in the carrier environment, you've got AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And we're going to call it T-Mobile Sprint now because their merger was approved. Do they all work everywhere? They do not. They just don't. And you can pull up their coverage maps, and one of them's kind of pink and one of them's blue and one of them's red, and they'll show coverage everywhere in the country except for, you know, on the top of Pikes Peak. That isn't true. They don't have coverage everywhere, or they have minimal coverage, but the speeds are terrible. And so how do I get a fast internet connection everywhere? Well, step one, you have to pick the right carrier. So how do you pick the right carrier? Well, that's our job. BroadSky does a virtual site survey of every single deployment and at every address that we put out there. So we look every address up, and then we go into our internal tools to assess coverage, which is comprised of a variety of tools, including the carrier maps that anyone can see. We look at crowdsourced material, but we also have access to the carrier coverage maps and the carrier maps themselves where their towers are, and that information is not public. We can see the towers. The second thing we do is, based on where the towers are, which carrier should we pick based on what speeds are available, based on what's been reported nearby? And then we pick that tower, and then we pick that carrier, and that becomes carrier 1 in SIM slot A. Whatever carrier came in second, we put in SIM slot B. So every router that BroadSky deploys has 2 carriers in it, and both of them are viable and could be used properly, and we map it first. I'm not aware of any other carrier or any other provider in this space that does this. It's possible, but I'm not aware. And then finally, we look to see where the towers actually are. So in this example, there's a tower to the site that is on one carrier and it's closer, but there's intervening topography. And so you wouldn't want to go to that because there's a hill in the way. And also the sectors are not pointing in the right direction. But instead you want to go to the tower that, while it is a little further away, it's a much cleaner signal path from the site to the cell tower. And that becomes the difference between it doesn't work and we don't know why, and yeah, we got it to work. 3 months of heartache versus a 15-minute phone call. And now it's done and it works properly. If you play that out one step more, if you're gonna roll out 100 sites, your customer is gonna start with 10. If you roll out 10 sites with a carrier or a provider or a carrier, either way, and they start to fail, 3 out of the first 10 don't work, they're not going to roll out the other 90. They're going to feel like it doesn't work and the error rate is too high and nobody can fix this for me and I have no insight into performance. We're going to go another way. That's where multi-site deployments fail, is the first 10. With BroadSky, the first 10 work. Then the next 10 go out, and that's typically on a 100-site deployment. That's how they do it. The first 10, they look to see, make it proven. Yeah, the first 10, they make it proven that it works. The next 10 are the one, oh, this does work. We need these 10 right away. And then they order the next 80 all at once because now they know it works. So 10, 10, 80 is how we see this go. Those first 10 have to work. And that's how multi-site deployments roll. I will point out across the bottom, because we don't emphasize this enough, we're all over Canada. So the first 3 carriers you recognize. The other 3 you might not. Those are the 3 Canadian cell carriers. And Canada's a big country. There's a lot of business up there. If you need cell connectivity for these applications in Canada, we have that. And I'd like to call that out because we're a little remiss on calling that out. We have hundreds of deployments up there. We've proven this out, and it's the same concept. One bill, same technology. You can see it in your portal. Canada's an opportunity, especially for those of you who live in the northern half of the country. Bless you. Like I said, I'm in Minneapolis, so it's good. Okay. We want to talk a little bit about speed tests now. People might not be aware of how fast wireless goes. And so these are some of the speed tests that we've been running out there to show how fast does wireless go. We're not in 15 to 20 meg down anymore. Now we're starting to see 125 meg down. That was on AT&T. 95 meg down. That was on AT&T as well. I think our record right now, our VP of Tech runs around the country and does speed tests on a chipset modem it's called a bond. It's called a Category 18 modem. It's the faster modem, which is outside the scope of this webinar, but we have access to this modem is the point I'm trying to make. You got 292 meg down in Los Angeles. Now that's not something that we would promise to people. That was an ideal conditions test, but I don't know if people realize that that's how fast a wireless network can go. And what is rare air today will become commonplace a year from now. So rolling it up to a larger theme, wireless is fast if you engineer it right, and we know how to engineer it right. If you want to jump on the wave is now. The carriers are advertising 5G, the networks are faster, and people all over the country are turning to this as a viable solution. Now is the time to know how to do this and sort of pick your partner. We'll make the case that we're that partner because we know what we're doing. And we sit in this space all day long and we're testing all the latest gear that comes in. We're finding out how to maximize the speeds on these. We're finding out where you can get the speed and how fast it can go. BroadSky's always been at the front of the curve on these things, and we always will be. And so we'll sort of make the case that we're the partner to go with when you start deploying your wireless solution. More speed tests. So over time, and this slide has a lot of speed tests on it, but on the right-hand side, you're seeing dates of September of 19, and yeah, there's a lot of speed tests on here. Reliably, those were not outliers that we put out there. 300 meg down, 200 meg down, 178 meg down. Whereas earlier in the year on that right-hand slide, they were slower. If you go to the right-hand slide all the way to the bottom on the way up, 30 meg, 50 meg, 53, 59. That's the network getting faster. But then go to the left-hand slide, October, 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 October. Now we're getting up into that 180, almost to 300. And so the network speeds in 2019 got faster. And there's many reasons for that, but they got faster, and we can harness those speeds for you and deliver them to your customer right now. That's sort of bottom line. One of the ways you can get more speed is to put up an external antenna. Now let's talk about that. Do you have to put up an external antenna? You do not. 96% of our deployments don't have an external antenna. It's the process I described before. Open up the router, screw in the antennas, plug it in, it works. When I say screw in the antennas, I mean the little paddle antennas that come along with the router. However, If you want ideal speeds, if you want to run as fast as possible, then you want to grab the signal on the outside of the building, not on the inside of the building. If you think about that wavelength that's coming from the tower, it's got to penetrate the building, and then it's got to get through maybe the metal studs, and then it's got to get through another door, and then it's got to get into the phone room, and then there's a whole bunch of electronic equipment in there, and there's metal in there. And so you're getting signal degradation in that last 50 feet, 80 feet. So instead, if you want to go as fast as possible, if you have customers who want to be leading edge speed, put an antenna on the roof, point it at the tower. We know where the tower is, and you'll see speed increases 50 to 100%, give or take. We've seen 90, in this particular example, it was a 97% speed increase after we put an external antenna up. And we faded out the speeds a little bit, but on the before side, it wasn't bad. We were getting 22 meg down. Most carriers and most providers in this business would be happy with 22 down. We put the antenna up. In other words, we grabbed the signal from outside the building, not inside the building, and we got to 54 meg down. Same router, same tower, same everything. The difference was grabbing the signal on the outside of the building. We can arrange these antenna installs for you. We take care of everything. We send TechLink out to do it for you. And so it's a one-time cost. It's going to cost you, give or take, $600. Customer does not have to do it, but if they do, they'll be on the absolute leading edge of speed for their wireless. Second slide is talking about the difference between two different carriers in one location. So what I was speaking to before is, on this particular address, although we didn't put the address up, but on this particular application, we tested both carriers. If you would have looked on the map, AT&T would have shown solid blue and T-Mobile would have shown solid fuchsia. Yep, we got coverage. Okay, what was the difference? Well, on AT&T, same router, same location in the building. This is not an antenna install, by the way. This is a router in the building. AT&T got 16 meg down. 16 meg down isn't bad. However, when we switched it to T-Mobile, T-Mobile got 45 meg down. That's an almost 3 times increase in speed. And we switched this over in 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. So we got 3x speed for 6 minutes investment. Now that's worth it. The cost didn't change. The deployment didn't change. We put 6 more minutes into it and we got 3x the speed. That's the broad sky difference. So sort of in summary, and rolling this back up to what are you guys talking about every day? Yeah, we're trying to get you to talk about wireless every day, but you're not. What you're talking about every day is UCaas, CCaaS, and SD-WAN. And still getting the VoIP out there for people who are still transitioning off traditional PBX. So in alignment with that, wireless powers those applications. We get them out faster. We make them work in areas that can only get single threaded, and we make them safe. You can fail over to a broad sky engineered circuit and run the whole business. So even if the backhoe hits, you're ahead of it. And a different way of making the same point, you cannot prevent the backhoe. You can't. And you can't prevent the flood. It's not possible. So the risk stays the same. The impact is going up every day. All we can do is take out the insurance policy now and get a high quality wireless circuit in. So on that day, it's an inconvenience, not a disaster. Just for some, I just stuttered. So just in summary, I sort of made those first 3 points, but I'll say them again. This is a no cut, no flood path to the cloud. Broad sky engineers it so that it works. We'll put in the right carrier. We'll put it on the right carrier. We'll put it in the right router. We'll make sure that they install it properly. And then we'll test it out so that all their applications are proven to work on it. So we support that UCaas, CCaaS, SD-WAN, VoIP. We can get it out there fast, either for a branch opening or to reap the benefits of SD-WAN now versus waiting for the circuits to come in and then just convert us over to the backup circuit. Get your SD-WAN advantages quicker, and it's on one bill. So one bill from Broad Sky, it's one pool of data, which we didn't talk about at all, but the data that you put on each of these plans all pools together. And it doesn't matter who the underlying carrier is. So on a 100-site deployment, arbitrarily, you have 33, 33, 34, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, in any order, doesn't matter. However it plays out, we're going to put it into one pool, and then every single location draws from that common pool. We can also see the pool, and we can also see how much they're using. Again, it's out of scope, but I'm going to say it anyway. The other thing that kills multi-site deployments is when companies don't know how much data they're using because no one reports it to them. BroadSky is fanatical about reporting how much data you're using. We've caught numerous companies ahead of time where they've deployed us and there was a misconfigure and they were sending all the traffic over the wireless circuit for whatever reason. We send them an email alert, an alert goes off the router, and we let them know, you're using a lot of data on this wireless circuit. Was that your intent? And then the response we'll get back is either A, yeah, that's our intent. We needed to open the doors with this. It should taper off in 3 weeks. Okay, great. Or, no, I wasn't aware of that. That was supposed to be going over the fiber circuit. We'll make the change. That's the other BroadSky difference, is we eliminate that disaster in month. As opposed to that, with our, I'm not going to call them peers, but with other people in this space, that circuit would have been on the wireless all month long, and then they would have got an enormous bill on the 20th of the next month, which means that the problem would have kept running through the 20th of the next month. And now you have a giant problem on your hands. This giant wireless bill showed up. Who's going to pay it? They're not happy. Someone needs to give me a break on this. That wasn't my traffic. And what happens is they don't trust the wireless. And so you rolled out 10, 3 of them didn't work, and one of them had a massive billing problem. They're going to be really leery of rolling out the other 90 if they experience those problems on the first 10. So that's where we get ahead of the curve on these, and that's why we have so many multi-site deployments, is we've seen it all, and we kind of know what's happening. We know how to communicate with people. Formally, we communicate once a week how much usage you have. The alerts go off, and then informally, the staff gets behind it and says, you know, hey, is this what you wanted to do? So you're well informed at BroadSky of how much data you're using. So again, one bill, one pool, and then finally one support line. You got a problem at any location, call BroadSky Engineering, and I mean, the guys in engineering really know what they're talking about. Like, this is, I can't prove this, but I'm just telling you, they've interopted with all of the deployments that you're using right now. If you have a Meraki issue, they've probably seen it before. If you're trying to get the VeloCloud to see if they've probably seen it before, et cetera, et cetera. So the Sonic walls, the Fortinets, that's their daily bread. They're interoperating with these all over the country. When you call in with a platform, they will know what you're talking about. They'll have heard of it before. This is proven out over thousands of circuits. Thousands and thousands of circuits have gone out the door. We've got this pretty well down. We're not perfect, but we've probably seen it. We'll make the wireless work if it's possible for the wireless to work. I'll even throw out there, just for a talking point, if you've had a failed wireless deployment in the past, but it was a good idea, but everyone got frustrated and quit, pick it back up again. We will make it work. And the other thing I'll throw out there is, if you have a customer you're starting to hear about giant overages on their Verizon bill, or their wireless bill's out of hand and no one can get their arms around this, or 30% of our locations can't use AT&T because it just isn't working right, we don't know why, we'll fix that. This is actually a subject of a future webinar, but it isn't just the greenfield deployments. Customers who have already put these out there, if you hear the word Cradlepoint or wireless, they're probably having problems and they're probably frustrated with it. There's an opportunity to transition those to BroadSky, make it work, and turn it into an MRC opportunity. So yeah, I just tipped our hand on a future webinar, but stay tuned. So finally, wireless is a strategic component. This is not a commodity. You have to make it work. It has to be supported. We can't fail over to the wireless and have that not work too. That was your last line of defense, and now that doesn't work. It doesn't look good. So these low quality solutions that you're seeing out there, these, it doesn't matter, LTE is LTE concepts that you're hearing, none of that's true. Wireless is tough. It's tough to make it work in every location reliably every day. You need a full-time partner that's all they're focusing on. And we've proven that we can be that partner. So yeah, that's my summary. We have a spiff out. If this is intriguing to you, we can front load the revenue side, and it works like this. It's a 1x MRC match, and the qualifications for that are 5+ sites, 5+ sites all at once, not over time, 5+ sites all at once, and 2-year minimum term. And we'll take the MRC and we'll match it on a 1x spiff. And then there's the example of that, 5 backup circuits. And by the way, a backup circuit at every location costs $70. That's just not expensive. Not when you consider what you're safeguarding, it's just not. I know there's products from, I'll just say it. I know Comcast has a product running around for $30. It just, you're not getting everything I talked about today on the $30 product. Let me just say it like that. Including the fact that they literally limit the speed that you can get to 10 meg. 10 meg's not enough, guys. And that's 10 meg on the down, the up at maybe 3. That's not a failover. That's just a DSL circuit delivered differently. Or if you'd like to engage some more of a white glove install, then we'll install it for you. So it's a $275 discount for pro install. That's someone in a truck walking out and installing it for you, which changes it from they have to do it so they don't have to do anything. So whichever one makes more sense to you, go with that, that sales incentive, and both of them are strong. So regions, we've got the country covered, and in no particular order, we'll just kind of go clockwise. Yeah, Jim Miller's in the Northwest. He's out of San Jose. I'm in the Midwest. I'm out of Minneapolis. Kevin Brennan is in the Northeast. He is out of lovely Pennsylvania. Todd Hulsenbeck is in the Southeast, and he is out of South Carolina. And then Maureen Donovan is covering the green, so the Southwest and over to Texas. And she is in sunny Los Angeles, California. So whichever channel manager is in your region, please reach out. I can't imagine that everyone's not super fired up to go sell wireless at this point, and so I'm sure it's your next phone call. Yeah. Okay. So that's the content of today's presentation. I went 35 minutes. That's about right. And now we're hoping for a pretty robust Q&A. So I've got 4 questions that have been put into the chat questionnaire already. And so the format we use for this is we read the question and then we give the answer. I'm hoping for 20 to 25 chat questions that come in as we roll. So we'll get started on those and then we'll see what we get. Okay, here we go. James Green asked, what are some of the best practices Broadsky has used to socialize this message to partner community? As you know, most partners in the space try to stay away from wireless in general. James, we're trying. This would be one, and you know, we're on the circuit. We're on the master agents that we distribute through, and I think honestly, I mean, this speaks to the quality that we've proven out, because these people don't keep bad vendors. In no particular order, you know, Intelisys, Telarus, TBI, TCG, Microcorp. There's more, and I know I left somebody out, but the big master agencies that are writing 85% of the business in this country all have Broadsky. And they don't keep vendors that don't work. So if it's not an endorsement from them, but it's just sort of common sense. If you generate nothing but problems, then they don't keep you around. Different master agencies have moved us into their higher tier. We're not just sort of sitting there in some of the supplier spaces. We've been singled out to be a strategic supplier, for instance, with Intelisys. They all have different flavors of their program, but we're deeply embedded with all of their engineering sides. I mean, we're sitting in the TBI demo lab as another example. Different people in different regions are at their events. We will meet you in person, and somebody's not that far away from you. So in the attempt to answer your question, we distribute through nothing but the channel managers, James, and we don't have a direct sales force, so this is not a channel conflict thing. On the flip side, we need partners to engage us in opportunities. And so we're doing our level best, man, to get this message out there. Your comment on most partners try to stay away from wireless in general. You know, we're one company, but we're trying to change that. And the way we're trying to change it is with quality.
Very good. Hey, Tom,
yes.
I just wanted to bring up that to try to enable really more education with the partners. Tom does a fantastic job with all these webinars, which we record and then post to our YouTube webpage. So if you missed part of it, or you want to listen to it again, or someone in your office you want to share it with, all of ours that we do monthly are all recorded on there. So it's a really great resource to listen to while you're doing other work, and you really get that, you know, knowledge, as well as our marketing departments put together a marketing in a box kit for at least our failover solution currently, that makes it really, really simple to then go to your existing base or to present to customers. A co-branded sell sheet, PowerPoint, drip campaign, things like that. So we're really, along with quality, as Tom said, and really what we're doing and all this education, we're trying to make it easier for you as well. So just know that those resources are available. So reach out. Thanks, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Maureen. Maureen Donovan, Los Angeles, California. James, second statement. Actually, James made a statement, not a question. Every SD-WAN deployment should have a broad sky solution. There you go. James said it better than me. All right, Tune6 asked a question, when and where can you connect to 5G? Is that info on your website? Tune, that's a great question. It depends on what you mean by 5G, and we're not going to delve all the way into this. 5G traditionally was marketed as the millimeter wave, and that's the one where you're going to get a 1 gig down solution. However, the carriers are starting to call their upgraded networks where you combine multiple frequencies together. It's kind of a 5G light thing. That technology is available right now. So if you're in a metro, you know, if you're in an area where people live, so in a ranch in Montana, maybe not, but if you're in an area where people live and we put a high quality router out there, we can get that 4-way combined speed. It takes 4 different frequencies from the tower and combines it into 1 usable download channel. Next step for that is the building has a tough signal penetration because we got to get all 4 frequencies in. We can put a couple antennas up on the roof and grab it. So 5G is being heavily advertised right now. And I'm going to call it 5G version 1 or 5G Lite. This is this 4-way channel bonding. It's here. The 1 gig download speeds, that's 2 years away. The 150 meg download speeds, that's here. And the next question was pricing. So we didn't put the pricing slide up because we'd like you to reach out to the channel manager. This is usage dependent. So what you have to look at is how much data you're going to use. But the baseline is $69.95 for a 1 gig plan, including the router. So I'll make the point that BroadSky includes the router. This is a no CapEx buy. Your end user doesn't buy the router. Your end user doesn't mess with warranties. They don't mess with portal fees. They don't mess with SmartNet. There's no, when we code a cost for the solution, that's the cost. And there are no other costs. So bundled pricing, no CapEx, cool is sort of the baseline of our multi-site. And then you add quality engineering to that and 1 bill and 1 support. And those are sort of the 5 pillars of the value proposition for making this wireless work. So $70 for a 1 gig plan. And then when you go up from there, you start buying additional gigs and it all goes into the pool. And so I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you and everyone to reach out to your channel manager to start digging into how much does a 100 gig plan cost, you know, and that kind of thing, because there's just too many options to spend too much time on a webinar. Mike asked, how would you differentiate your technology from a fixed wireless play? Great question. So fixed wireless, I'm assuming, Mike, what you're saying is somebody who has a broadcast signal on top of a tower and they broadcast to you, and then you get as much speed as you get and you can use as much data as you want. That's your traditional fixed wireless. If you look at the economics of this, There are no national fixed wireless providers. Nobody has been able to make that model work and put enough towers up across the country to reach everybody. And there's a reason for that. It's not a particularly elegant business. You have to go up on top of the tower, and then you have to point a sector antenna out, and then everyone who sees that sector antenna has to sign up. And what happens to these companies is they start putting towers up and they sign up some customers, but as they try to expand, they find that it's not a great business model, and they tend to stall. So fixed wireless covers 7 to 9% of the country maybe. And then the second problem with it is that it's very capital intensive. And so the fixed wireless network you put up 2 years ago isn't fast enough anymore. And now you have to go back and you have to upgrade everything. And all of that kind of rolls back up into, where does that money come from? And it's tough. It hasn't scaled, and it hasn't scaled for 15 years. So I don't think it's going to. As opposed to that, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, they've already got the towers, they've already got the network, and they have access to the capital markets through either they can raise money from Wall Street, bottom line. They have the capital to keep doing this. So that's the difference. You can get this LTE technology virtually anywhere. Fixed wireless you can get somewhere. But inevitably on a 100-site deployment, 87 of them aren't going to get it. And they're certainly not going to get it from the same provider. And they're certainly not going to get it on one bill. And so that's really the difference. James stated Planet One. I was talking about master agencies, and I said I knew I'd forget somebody, and I did. Planet One is also a fantastic broad sky partner. Okay. Dennis asked, did you mention cross-carrier pooling? Huge differentiator. I did, but I'll say it again. So again, we put everything into one data pool, and that data pool is comprised of whoever the underlying carrier is based on quality measures, but it all rolls up into one pool. Now, there are other companies attempting to do this. Maybe they've got it figured out, maybe they don't, but we do. We've had this nailed down for about 4 years now. We can also report on your usage per site. I'm not sure of anybody who's got that nailed down yet, other than us. And that's not an accident. This is something we heavily invested in, and there is a data management team at BroadSky that is committed to getting the information to end users about how much data they're using. So none of these black hole conversations of where am I at and nobody knows. We're the opposite of that. Vin said, great webinar, concise and complete. Oh, thanks, Vin. And then Mike Peterson asked, what's the biggest misunderstanding or mistake the agent market is making with your product set? I would say the biggest mistake is the concept that wireless is a commodity. Well, no, I'll back up even one. Biggest mistake, wireless doesn't work. It does. It just does. It works. I know it works. I got 12,000 sites that says it works. So it works. Second mistake is wireless is wireless is wireless. It's not. You have to put a decent router out there. The router has to have a portal that you can see what you're doing. The router that you put out there has to work 3 years later, not break 9 months out. It has to have good signal acquisition, and it has to be from a reputable manufacturer that stands behind it. Then the people who deploy it have to know what they're doing. It's not a commodity. And where wireless deployments fail is treating it like a commodity. I talked to a major department store chain who deployed on, and this has nothing to do with Cisco and Verizon. This is what it was. They deployed on Cisco and Verizon, and they had a 40% fail rate. And this is an elegant company that knows what they're doing. But they didn't know wireless, and it didn't work. It just didn't work because it was the wrong technology and the wrong carrier put in the wrong place. I'm again going to roll up to that. If you have customers who have attempted this and failed, it is a golden opportunity to go back in and make it work. If you have customers that have attempted this and they can't stand it anymore, we can transition it to BroadSky. It's not just greenfield new deployments. Existing deployments can be managed and improved. One of our largest customers at BroadSky, a retail chain that you would recognize, came to us after 1 year of attempting to do it themselves. They don't have a shortage of money and they don't have a shortage of brain power. And they couldn't make it work. And when they got to us, it was circa, I'm going to say 500 sites that they had taken a run at. We had it cleaned up in 2 months, and then they deployed the next 500. So those are the business opportunities, and just roll that up into MRC. You know, these are $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month billers. This is not an $80. I can't even tell that I sold that deal thing. There's MRC in this. There's MRC in this. And then Adam said, kudos to Kevin Brennan for continuous support. Heck yeah. Kevin is